Oh yeah. What's going on, people? It's dual GPU going on here. Have you ever seen such a gigantic blue beast of a video card making all kinds of blower noise? Well, probably not. Well, how's it going? It's Timmy Joe and the stuff and things. So, it's dual GPU month in September. This is a little thing I've invented because I have so many damn dual GPUs, including this Radeon Pro Duo WX7100, thanks to a viewer named Tyler. He's my buddy and he always gives me the cool stuff. I don't know why. He bought it for like 500 bucks. You might say, what the hell is that thing? Well, believe it or not, 32 gigabyte model of a pro card meant for not gaming. That's essentially two of these on one card. This is an RX 580 8 gigabyte model. That's an RX, well, it's the same Polaris GPU, has a different code name and such, but as we'll see, let's go check it out. It has the same amount of TMUs, the same amount of ROPs. Obviously the VRAM's changed, but RX 480 there, and this is the original. And then if you look down here, you see 1120 with a boost of 1266. This thing here has a GPU clock of 1243, which we are running at here, which is not an easy feat to accomplish, as we will discover. If it did run at this might actually be sort of a viable option for, you know, gaming with a little bit, because that's two RX 580s, you know, not overclocked ones. I mean, RX 580s can get up between 14 and 1500 megahertz if you get the OC models, but you know, having two of them on one card, there's a prospect for that, especially before, like, you know, 5700 and stuff like that, you know, back when AMD was having hard times with their GPUs. Maybe they could have released a gaming version of this. Well, probably not, because dual GPU support has just gotten so bad. So we see that this is running at 1243, and the reason why it's taken me a while to get this video together is, well, number one, I actually thought, let's do a whole month in September of dual GPUs. We'll start it off with this. This will get some views because there's no one that's done videos on this thing. Actually, Hardcore Overclocking BuildZoid has done a video on him, like doing the PCB analysis. He had one. He showed actually how to overclock it by putting BIOSes on it. We're not going to be doing that here today because, heck, this is not my card, and I don't feel like this was $500 Canadian for my buddy Tyler. No idea why he bought that, because he's not a like CAD designer or something like that. He just likes weird GPUs. Well, I'm not going to mess it up on him, that's for sure. So, I have the power limit set up, and we can see here we're getting a fair shake at TimeSpy. We got 8,206. That's actually sort of respectable. Kind of, sort of respectable. But, here, I'll turn the damn fan down on this. There we go. About over a year ago, AMD just completely took their pro drivers and made it so these dual cards have no access to change the power limit. And when you install the current gen drivers for this, although there'll be better gaming support because there is, like, you know, game code built into their pro driver, there's definitely not going to be support for any overclocking at all. BuildZoid had to do the BIOS mod because there's like literally the API is not built into the driver that allows like the MSI Afterburner, the utility, or there is actually nothing in Wattman to communicate, you know, with the card to do the things that you'd want to do for overclocking. So you have to go as far as BIOS modding. And then with these current drivers, you can't even access the power limit. And when we load up the current gen driver, which we're going to do so that we can see what kind of games it plays. You know, if I'm going to play like Apex Legends, or if I'm going to play, you know, some of today's stuff that actually might still support dual GPU, I want the most current gen driver on there, and we'll get the actual what you can get with current drivers performance on the screen here. Because in my experience with this driver here from like December of 2017, I'm not having too much luck with games that are supposed to run Crossfire and they're not. So I'll load up the real driver. We'll get that loaded up. We're running a Pro Duo today, a card that I can't find anyone gaming on YouTube. So this should be fun to mess around with this thing. But I mostly can't find people, you know, doing that because, as we'll see, the clock speeds that we get are nowhere near what this thing would get. And we're getting like less than RX 570 in Crossfire performance once we get this all, you know, chagrined up with the newest drivers and stuff. So come with me, I'll do some things on my end, and then we'll actually play some video games, and we'll see if we can't run some dual GPU stuff, and we'll show you some Firestrike. Well, here, 8200. Yeah, let's go ahead and run that again. We'll start with the current gen drivers, and we'll see with a graphics score of 7853 what we actually get with the current gen drivers right after I slap the screen. Okay, so we have the proper driver installed here, and things aren't actually looking as bad as I thought. There's something to do with Firestrike specifically when I was doing my initial testing, where I saw that these would be like in the sub 1100, like 1050, 1080 range, but it's just something to do with maybe like the DirectX 12 works a lot better with this or something like that. I don't know what's going on. Let's check out what the difference is once the power limit is brought down to that low amount. So we were at a graphics score of 7,853 and 7,299. But if we get into the differences with Firestrike, they were a lot greater, and it seemed like the clock speeds would dip a lot lower. So it's really just unfortunate is all we're getting at, that there's like very little you can do to maximize the performance of this. When you hear two RX 580 GPUs in one, you'd think that that would actually equate to like the performance of a 1080 Ti or something like that, but it's barely even hitting the performance of a 5700. So that really, you know, puts things into perspective. Now it doesn't. But can we play video games on it? Well, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, mess around with this a little bit, and you know, things actually aren't looking quite as bleak as I thought once I installed the driver here, but I want to see, like, I've got a list of Crossfire supported games here. I'll go through them for some 2019 stuff and see if I can't actually show this thing working as like sort of a 1440p card or something like that. I don't know, we'll see what we can get at. So give me a second, I'll load up some video games. Alright, Apex Legends, and I got this to work by going into the settings for Apex Legends in the Radeon driver and going optimized 1-to-1 mode. That's how this works. We have our little Crossfire logo up here, and we actually see that both GPUs are running at 1243 megahertz in this game. So maybe this isn't going to be as bad as I thought. We're running at 1440p, all the settings maxed. Of course, we have 16 gigs of VRAM to play with here, so I don't imagine it should be hard work for two RX 580s to play this game at 1440p max settings. Okay, we have some flickering going on. I'm the jump master. This is running like absolute crap. I feel bad for the people. No, let's just die right away. Terrible performance. I don't know what's going on here. This does not bode well. I'm dead already. 25 frames a second. I'm gonna see if there's a fix for this. There's no way it can be that bad. Alright, I enabled some settings that actually looks like it's fixed the flickering. However, there's no way I'm getting any better than single card performance here. I don't know what's going on, but I'm only at 25 frames a second with the settings up at 1440p. Like, I would imagine an RX 580 would get that or better. I don't really understand. 43 frames a second in game. This does not look good for Homestar Runner. Ah, it's so impossible to play like this. All right, turn Crossfire off. I just want to see what the actual performance of just a standalone GPU in this thing would be in Apex Legends. Alright, this is actually much more fluid at 1440p settings with just the one GPU, so I don't really get it. Ah! Yeah, we're getting 60 frames a second almost, so not gonna happen, man. So there's obviously something, because I've seen people on AMD forums here state that they've gotten Apex to work well with Crossfire by enabling the settings I enabled, where Maybe it's something to do with the Pro graphics or drivers, or the fact that it's using a PLX chip to talk to itself rather than the PCIe lanes. I don't know what's going on with this, but we got to find a game that works well with Crossfire with this thing, right? So let's keep digging. In 2019's, 2018, some newer titles. Let's find one. All right, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and we have Crossfire support at DirectX 12. So this should work real well, right? All right, we've got 1440p, high settings, and we're checking some stuff out here. Let's see how it performs. 72 frames a second, that's not absolutely terrible. Yeah, 76 frames, not so bad here. All right, so we're getting up near 100 frames a second. This isn't so bad, I guess. I wonder what it is like compared to non-Crossfire with just one card running. I'm going to go ahead and turn Crossfire off and we'll see exactly what kind of frames. Like, we're averaging around 86 frames a second right now in my normal benchmark run. And I think, like, I had to turn shadows off. Apparently that really messes with things. I couldn't get it to work with Crossfire in the first couple times I launched it. So maybe this isn't exactly the whole story. Let's go ahead and load up just one card and see, one GPU, and see what the performance is like. All right, we're at the same section of the level and we're getting 44 frames a second. So this is actually like a win. This was running very fluidly with this card at much higher than what the standard card, or like with one GPU, can do at 40 frames a second here at 1440p. So I'm actually rather impressed. It worked very well with DirectX 12 and the Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We're getting 40 frames a second now. Now, mind you, an RX 580 at 1500 or 1450 megahertz and a higher memory clock would probably be much closer to 60 frames a second in this game. But it's definitely not terrible. Anyways, let's move on to a different game. We gotta find, there's gotta be more than just Tomb Raider that works with Crossfire to get a little bit of game action going on. All right, Far Cry 5, and we can tell that it's working because my MSI Afterburner FPS up there, ooh, I killed both of them right away, is flickering like a bastard, but we're getting anywhere from 90 looking at the ground all the way to 78 on average. So I wonder how good that is compared to just one of these GPUs running the game. I don't know, but this is actually pretty decent fluid experience. 1440p ultra settings. Get the bear! The bear escaped me. Anyways, let's load up a non-dual GPU situation of this game and see was the frame rate actually improved. Alright, so here we are, and we got one of the graphics cards loaded, and it's getting 50 frames a second at 1440p ultra settings. So not really the greatest showing for a single card. It gets popped up to 60 there for a second when you're just looking at the ground, but that's about it. So was dual GPU was worth it? Heck yeah! Alright, so the last game, of course, I was going to run something from 2019, I really was, but Control, recently released. Definitely no support for Crossfire or multi-GPU. I mean, the list goes on. Battlefield 5 you can get to run with NVIDIA Profile Inspector, but I couldn't, well, this guy wants me to get out of the way. Anyways, who cares about him? Like, any new game from 2019, like, they don't support it, and you can get them working with NVIDIA Profile Inspector, but there's, like, not very many good ways of making Crossfire work that same way, and it's just such a big pain in the butt. So I thought, heck, we'll play Grand Theft Auto and see what kind of performance increases we can get. That's a game that certainly does support multi-GPU, and if we go into settings, we can see the settings are pretty well, high or very high, and the memory usage is up there at 8 gigabytes, so it's got to be pretty decent. And what are we getting for a frame rate here? Both graphics cards pegged, and I'm barely getting 50 frames a second. Are you kidding me? There's got to be something that's hindering this. I'll play with the settings and see if I can't get it a little bit better. I turn shadows down, okay, and it jumps right up there to 80. Aha, 80. Okay, so this isn't so bad. But, I mean, you can get this kind of performance from several low-end GPUs. In fact, I think an RX 580 would probably do the same as this. I don't know. Let's steal a car, and we'll see what kind of performance we can get driving in this old bucket. You get out of here, biatch! I mean, it's pretty smooth, I guess, for Crossfire being running. All right, I'm gonna go turn off Crossfire and see what kind of performance we were getting. All right, we got Franklin loaded up here, and yep, 36, yeah, so we were doing way better with Crossfire turned on. So, I mean, I guess this is worth it. I guess it's working. I guess so. I don't know. It actually runs pretty decently at 40 frames a second here. It's just such a well-optimized game, even at night when all this reflectance and stuff are going on, all these lightings and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna steal this little Toyota Corolla-looking car. I used to have one of these, and let's just finish her off. I'm gonna go ahead and do the thing and undo the video, and we'll finish her off. We'll do a little conclusion. All right, so as far as you want to look at it, this is what it looks like. Pro Duo. This card is ridiculous. It's gigantic, fairly decent blower, like I guess because they knocked the power down on these, you know, Polaris ends up being pretty power efficient. It was pretty warm when I took it out. It's still pretty warm, but it's not the most ugly card. I don't know. Blue, if you have a little blue system, this would look real good in there, but Pro Duo, like what was this used for? Well, I assume there's some very large CAD work or something. It's supposed to have all these teraflops of compute performance rivaling a Titan X or something like that. No, not really. In fact, if you're a kind of savvy person, you know that there was a Pro Duo before this, which was Fiji based. It was black, it was water cooled, and it was probably more powerful than this as far as like the actual GPU performance, especially because it was water cooled. But yeah, this thing has a lot more VRAM than that. It has 32 gigs, 16 split. But as soon as Vega Frontier Edition came out, which is the blue Vega, that had 16 gigs of VRAM on it, of HBM. And that would have been like a way better card, and it was around the same amount of money, if not cheaper. I mean, it's behind me there. And then Radeon 7 has a lot of VRAM as well. So, I mean, 16 gigs. So the whole 16 gigs of VRAM, this doesn't look so impressive. 32 looks impressive, but it's not 32. So, I don't know. It was a lot of fun to play around with this, but ultimately pretty disappointing in its gaming performance. I mean, you could buy an RX 580 and then it would probably have, you know, better performance than this thing does in like all the games that aren't Crossfire compatible, which is like, if you look at all the games that launched recently, dual GPU is just not a thing anymore. It's unfortunate. But if you really wanted to play with it, rocking two RX 580s, and then you can, you know, turn Crossfire on when you don't want it, and then when you're done and you want to sell the cards, you can take it out and actually sell both the GPUs, you know, for what you paid for them, or maybe 50 bucks less. Where this guy bought this for like $1,200. My buddy Tyler saw it go down. He bought it during the mining crisis, and he was trying to sell it like in the last 6 months. He saw it on there for like 900, 800, 700, 600, and then finally Tyler offered him 500 and he took it. So he lost more than half his money buying this thing, and it's essentially useless. Apparently he bought it for gaming during the mining crisis to get a high-end GPU. That's what he did. Obviously quite the uninformed gent. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. What a way to kick off multi-GPU month. I mean, I have way cooler stuff than this because the benchmarks that this thing could pull, you know, it can't overclock. It's ultimately its downfall. I'm going to be putting two 295 X2s in a water loop. Maybe we'll even try and chill that water loop with a chiller that I'm gonna make out of an air conditioner later this month, so subscribe. And we'll see. That will be monstrous. Like, that's almost, you know, one of these. I would say it's probably as fast as one of these, a 295 X2, and you can overclock it. And I've got two of them, totaling 4 GPUs. That's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for coming along for this journey. Big Blue here is a complete and utter disappointment. Let me know if you know what the use case is for this specific card. Like having a lot of VRAM but not needing all that much performance, but the dual GPU doesn't get in the way. Is that like a CAD thing? Is that a Blender thing? I'm not smart enough to know that. I was trying to research like who uses these things, and so few people talk about them. There's like really no information out there, so yeah. So thanks to Tyler for letting me borrow this. Look forward to more dual GPUs later on in the month. I've been working on some stuff, so if you want some previews of some things, patreon.com, TimmyJoe, or you could access to the Discord there. We have little conversations about tech and fun things, and you show off your builds and stuff to me, and we can talk about things, or maybe you need some help. I'll help you on the Discord. It's $1 to go sign it up on the Patreon, and you get access to that. I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching. Team Rocket strikes again!